Hello, and welcome to the Argyle HR Leadership Forum Talent Innovation 2024. My name is Vicki Lynn Brunskill with Argyle. It's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator for the session and our wonderful panelists. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience today. At any time during this event, you can reach those virtual booths from the main agenda page, and those do include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. Throughout today's event, you also have the opportunity to win a prize, so please do check out the prizes and raffle rules tab to see how you can earn points. And to ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. And now, without further delay, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the session, Stacy Lewis, Chief Executive Officer and Chief Influencer at HR Interrupted. We are so excited to have Stacy and our panelists for a discussion titled Harnessing Hyper-personalization to Improve Employee Experiences. Welcome, Stacy, over to you.
Thank you, Vicki. Welcome to everyone who's joining us today. We are so honored to have you share this space with us as we talk about harnessing hyper-personalization to improve employee experiences. And so we have a rich and robust conversation for you today with an extraordinary panel. So I want to jump right in and start this conversation. Panel, I'm going to ask you a question to introduce yourself to get this going, because this is going to be an extraordinary conversation. So when I go to you, please introduce yourself and tell us about the most significant ways in which you have seen organization improve the employee experience with personalization. Because we're talking about harnessing hyper-personalization, which takes on an advanced level of technology and looking at how we do the employee experience. So Carrie, I'm gonna start with you. Please introduce yourself and tell us the most significant ways that you have seen organizations improve their employee experience through personalization.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Carrie Salander, I'm with Ashley Furniture Industries, their HR Senior Director of Employee Experience. I think one of the most interesting things to me on this journey is we've really moved from what would be the employee mapping, employee journey mapping, and we've personalized it. So now we're going back and asking the employee, instead of maybe putting them in a bucket like we did before, how do you want to be communicated to? What works best for you? Do you like text? Do you like video? Some people still like paper. But what does that look like for you, and how can we better serve you in that way? So I really think asking, listening, and then acting on the feedback has really been where we've seen that tweaking to really meet our customer and our employees' needs.
Love that, Carrie. We're no longer in the days of making people feel happy to have a job, right? People matter.
Right.
Love that. Francesca, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Francesca McKibben. I work for Cloud Imperium Games, or the makers of Star Citizen and Squadron 42. It's a crowdfunded video game. And so your question, Stacy, is about hyper-personalization. Is that right?
Your question, I want you to introduce yourself right now and tell us what's the most significant ways that you have seen organizations improve their experience.
Well, going back to what Carrie said as well, it's really going back to the employee. And I think that we've seen a shift during the pandemic and post-pandemic. We really started to lean closer to employees and get a better understanding of them. We really had to change the framework of how we existed in today's world. I was talking to Jen about it earlier, how we no longer do the Monday to Friday in person. A lot of different companies do a different model. So we're trying to cater to different types of people. Are you a single mother? Are you a caregiver? Are you a parent to someone? Or and what happens is those people need also work-life balance. It's no longer that you have to sit here and be present and show kind of your dedication to work. Right now, a lot of us are either in the studio, right, or at office, or we're at home right now. And that's kind of part of hyper-personalization and really understanding what people need to get the best out of them.
Awesome. Thank you, Francesca. Jen, same question. Just introduce yourself and tell what are some of the significant ways that you have seen organizations improve employee experience through personalization.
Yes, thanks, Stacy. So happy to be here. So first off, want to thank the folks at Argyle for reaching out and hosting this event. Honored to participate. So I am Jen McCloskey. I am Director of Employee Experience for the Payments Operations group at JP Morgan Chase, which is a group of about 9,000 employees globally. Been with the company for about 10 years and focused in this capacity for about 4.5 years. So the one disclaimer I want to put on this is, although I do HR, like in my role, I do not sit within HR. So it's kind of unique in that, I'm not an HR specialist, but I play one on TV. And so I think when it comes down to personalization, I think what we're seeing is we're getting really good at spotting when companies are just checking a box or phoning it in. So that's where hyper personalization and getting that right is really critical. And I think one of the examples that came to my mind when thinking about this question is, we had the opportunity to work with our HR partners. We have the ability in our employee directories to put in preferred name, in addition to pronouns and things like that. And our recognition programs were not using preferred name. So, say for example, my name is Jennifer, but I prefer to go by Jen. When you recognize me as Jennifer, I don't even acknowledge that. I'm like, who's this Jennifer person? So we worked with our HR partners and our tech partners to say, you know what, if you're taking the effort to collect something as unique as preferred name, we need to use it. And so that had a huge impact on people being like, oh, okay, recognition is actually acknowledging me and using my preferred name. So I think that's just a great example where, you have to make sure you're using the data at your disposal to get your personalization right. And that really has an impact on employees saying, all right, I took the effort to do that and you're using it. So
Love
that was
that.
kind of the example that came to mind.
I love that, Axel, right? You're asking for the data. What do we do with it, right? And that's why sometimes employees don't give data because they think it's just a waste of time. Love that.
Exactly.
Rocky, high level, introduce yourself and just share with us one significant way in which you've seen organization improve the employee experience through personalization.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So super happy to be here. So I work two different hats at the moment. I'm a senior business analyst. I work at Google at the moment as a senior BA, but I also run an insurance agency. So kind of two different things. So I get a little bit of experience being, having touch with HR on both sides of it, more so on the insurance side of it, since I do have some agents that work with me there. In terms of, personalization, I mean, we're talking really more than just, slapping someone's name on a birthday email. We're talking about really taking time to understand what is that person's experience going to be throughout this entire journey while they're at this organization. So a couple of things that I think I've seen Google do a really good job of is just they do a lot of personalized onboarding. So when you're starting a new job, you have an onboarding plan that's kind of tailored to what you want to accomplish, your skill levels, your interests, maybe get you paired with a mentor who shares a lot of the passions that you have. Just, even the modules that we go through, it's just all very, very tailored to exactly where you are currently in your level of understanding. And then we also have, Google does a really good job of flexible work arrangements. So, not everybody wants to work in a traditional 9-to-5 type of office setting. So they'll let you work from anywhere pretty much for the most part, as long as you can get your work done. And even the Google Office there's just so many different things you can do. There's little slides that you can take from office to office. So that's something that's extremely important, I think, for the personalization aspect of it. And also the third component is just career development, not making everything one size fits all, but rather letting each person take their own journey. And so even the training programs and things like that, the mentorship opportunities are all catered towards what that person ultimately wants to accomplish.
Thank you, Rafi. I appreciate that. Francesca, I want to jump into something that you were talking about, and that is, how would you define hyper-personalization, right? You all have done such a great job in giving examples about personalization in space, but this is next level. So how would you define that? You touched on it a little bit, and why is this important to today's HR leaders, people strategists, as you guys know, behind HR, I call it people, business, culture strategists, because that's really what we do. Why is that important? Really bring that hyper piece into it for us.
Right. Well, to define it, of course, very simply, it's the heart of it is data, right? It's using data analytics and taking this information and really trying to customize to tailor employee experiences to what they need from a group to individual level. And Rafi had said that very, very clearly. based on what they like, because the truth is it really tries to strengthen company culture. We're trying to serve our employees, because in the end of the day, they serve us. It's a give and take relationship. And so the reason why it's important for us is because of just that. It would build and strengthen workplace culture. It would increase retention. You would become a more desirable workplace. People would continue to come to you every day. Otherwise, what else would keep them there? And these are the kind of things that would help us better understand our demographics. What do they value? How can you retain their staff? So I think those are kind of one of the reasons why it's important for us to focus on personalization and how it really ties into our work.
I was thinking about that because I know with Disney, I'll just use them. One of the things that they were talking about, their success is really studying the demographics of the people who come to their visitors, right? That's why they're so successful, because they put a lot of work in studying the demographics of their guests. So how much more in the workplace, right? To this point of studying the trends and what they likes and their desires and their expectations. Anybody else want to build on that about, why is it important to leaders before I go to Jen? Anybody else have thoughts on that?
I would just like to say, I think as she's talking about that individualism, it is showing up also in an authentic way. I think it was Rafi who said that, slapping or slapping something on a birthday email is no longer, or one of you said that it was wonderful, because that's true. Like, just saying happy birthday is no longer what our employees are looking for. They want a genuine experience where they're seen. And I really think that that's, what we're talking about today, taking that data to the next level to really see and sharing that experience with our employees. So just wonderful. Thank you.
And I think, Carrie, that's good. We're going to go to Jen. And I'd like to even say there's a balance there, because some people simply want a happy birthday. So you got to think about that, right? Everybody doesn't want the high and the glamour. And then some people don't even want you to say happy birthday. They just want to come to work and leave, right? And so when you start talking about this hyper-personalization, it's important, and I know we're going to talk about that we make sure that it doesn't become a one size fits all. It's this peripheral, it's the whole gamut. Love that. Jen, jump into this. Based on what I just said, what are the top challenges related to applying data to create more personalized employee experience? And I kind of gave you an entree, just remember, but what are some of the challenges you're seeing or you think are there?
I mean, it's the data itself. Like, we collect so much data in everything that we do. And I think one of the challenges is, don't collect data if you're not going to do anything with it. Because to the point we made earlier, people are going to stop giving it. It's like, I know you're not going to get my birthday right. I know you're not going to get my name right. I know you're not going to acknowledge that you are going to respect my preferences. So don't ask for it. But I think one of my biggest challenges, particularly, is, again, as I mentioned, I'm not embedded in HR. I work with my HR partners. So I don't have direct access to a lot of the data that I need to use to get personalization right for my organization. So part of it is, you first have to know what data is available or is being collected before you know what you have to work with. You have to know where that data sits and how to get access to it. Is it in a single repository, single source of truth, not scattered across multiple systems that are going to make it more likely that one system's going to get updated with one piece of data and another one's not? Has it been collected in an organic manner, again, to Carrie's point, with that spirit of authenticity of intent, like not collecting it just to check a box, just to fill a bucket, just to say we've got this data, and fulfill those activities. I think the other thing that I struggle with is trusting that the data that I'm being given is current and accurate, which means we have to constantly be validating and like working on data hygiene to make sure things are updated. Particularly in big businesses, people leave, join, move different, to different areas all the time. So we need to make sure that our data is keeping up with the pace of change. And you have to know the nuances of your business. So again, one of my other big challenges here is highly matrixed organizations. You have to know the organization that you're in, or that you are supporting, or that you are working with, to know where those dotted line relationships exist and how they connect, so that you can make sure your data sets include everybody. I've got two big groups that I work with, and one is consistently not tied to the other. If I didn't know that, those people would get overlooked. So I think that's critical, and doing all of that in a timely manner, because you don't want to get that birthday email 6 months later, because that's how long it took you to
Right.
get the information. So so those are kind of all of my challenges, and it's like a love-hate relationship with data.
Yeah.
I love that it's there and it's great, but the struggle to get it and to use it effectively is, it goes on.
So, Jen, great conversation. Let me throw something out here for the panel, and it's really about this data. Um, I'm working with a client who's in this space, and one of the things that they're experiencing is that the employees are really, they're apprehensive. They already don't have a trust for HR. They're apprehensive, and they're feeling like, here's another, HR is going to say that they're going to use this to personalize and they're going to care for me. Well, this is another way that I am going to be penalized. And so, how would you, and just kind of someone jump in, advise an organization wants to take this approach, that wants to start securing this data, knowing that in the back of people's minds they still have an apprehension about HR's human resources offerings to them? How would you advise them to start? I think it's a good question on this data, talking about those challenges. Anybody, just
I'd like to add something to that. For our experience, I'll give you an example. So, if you want to collect like EEO information or DEI information specifically, we use Workday, right, as an HRS system, and we encourage our staff. There's a lot of optional things. We don't pressure anyone to add their gender or their race, or their statuses. But it would greatly help HR if you did, right? And some people don't understand that. They don't know why. Well, what would you use this data for? But really, it relates to our perks, our benefits, the way that we interact with you to understand what you need. And I think, again, like you had said, Stacey, they're absolutely apprehensive because perhaps in the past, providing that information, they felt they were discriminated or retaliated in some sense. They also are dealing with trauma, what I would say, pre-pandemic ways of very old kind of paradigms of HR, maybe from previous employers, right? And so they go to the next company and they think all HR is the same. And I can't blame them for that. All we have to do is try to correct that and to build their trust back. So the way that we would use it, and the way we would advise, as a business partner to our company, is to actually see change right away. So the way that we are approaching it is we have employee resource groups. They're for underrepresented staff, and we have groups for our LGBTQ community, people who are veterans, they're caregivers, they are women, they have disabilities, mental health issues, all sorts of things. We have all sorts of groups, and we give them a voice and power. They also coordinate and liaise with an executive sponsor that we pair them up with, and so they have direct access to our executive teams to talk about some concerns that they have, if they have feedback or any suggestions about things that directly impact them, and then we could make real and live changes, meaningful changes in the workplace. And so that is one way that we build trust back, and then they go, now I understand why they're asking for this data. It's because it's relating to the perks and benefits that they've just asked us, and so we've given them an advocate and a group to kind of help them with that. So that's one of the ways that we tackle that.
Francesca, that's amazing. Some immediate results, right? Some immediate results, and utilizing your internal organization resource. Sometimes, as people, business culture strategists, we don't utilize those resources internally. Those ERG groups are amazing, and thank you for saying that. That's why my company is called HR Interrupted, for all of this, right? That next level of what we're doing. Thank you. Anybody else on that? Or I can jump into Francesca. You have this, but Carrie, anyone jump in? What are some of the recent strategy gaps that HR leaders face in building that better employee experience that you were kind of talking about, Francesca? And I know it's going to start with you. That encourages career development. So, what are some of the recent strategy gaps that HR leaders face in building better employee experiences that encourage career development, and how can we overcome this? Maybe Francesca, you can start, and Carrie, Jen, and Rafi can jump in.
Yes, absolutely. I think perhaps if you're looking at departments or HR leaders that are not really focusing on that next level career pathing development, there's very traditional mid-year reviews, your annual reviews, and that's it. And feedback, as you know, cannot just be twice a year, and also in an empty open forum where there's no goal setting, there's no review, right? There's no instant loop of feedback. And I think with that old paradigm, there is no growth. And so the way that we're tackling it in our company is, of course, I think the best thing, it's a standard, I think, as of today, is to really have framework for job architecture and to understand where one position goes to the next. And that all ties also to pay banding, career pathing, job leveling. It's a whole framework, and I know it's very intimidating to build it yourself. None of us are experts. I would highly encourage you to hire a third party, consultant. We work with people like Mercer, who's absolutely incredible to help build this framework. They help customize it for us. We have very unique positions in our company because we make a video game. So we have people like a vehicle artist. You're going to ask yourself, well, what is that? This is in the digital space. We make a computer game that's like in the universe. So we build planetary systems and spaceships, and we have specific people that are artists but build vehicles, and they even build ships. Like I'm talking about spaceships. And you go, well, what does my career pathing look like for someone who is a vehicle artist? They go to 1, 2, 3. They'll be a lead vehicle artist, a senior vehicle artist. Do you want them to go to the manager path? Do they like to manage people? Or do they want to go to the principal path because they'd like to be an individual contributor? And that's how you really try to draw out a job architecture framework. So that's, I think, number one. And the two is having very customized reviews. So not asking your standard questions, of course, but really tailoring it to their craft. So what we do is we have customized competencies that we do specifically for that, and we work and partner with each manager, and then we give it out. So that's actually something that we're currently working on at the moment.
Francesca, the job architect, do you introduce that pre-hire? Like, do applicants know that framework exists? Or are they aware of their career path once they become an employee? Because what an amazing marketing idea for somebody who's an applicant who can already see, wow, this will keep in my structure. When is that typically shared?
I think it depends on the individual. When you do interviews with people, that's when you really kind of figure out what their values are, the questions that they're asking, and also, give and take the things that we're sharing to let them know, hey, if you would like to join our team, if you'd like to join our company, this is what it would look like. We'd also give them examples of career pathing success stories in our company. We have plenty of those. I've been in the company for 10 years. I started as an HR manager in 2014. Right now, I'm the VP of HR for both the US studios, and it's absolutely incredible. I'm just one example of many other employees that have kind of done the same.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else have any thoughts about gaps?
Well, I'd like to add on that. We too look at the jobs and the vertical, but what we've really started to do the last few years, especially after COVID, is realize that the skill set is transferable. So instead of just looking at vertical, opening it up across the realm, if maybe you don't want to stay in HR, perhaps you're more interested in operations, and there is a place that you can use that skill set, and we can teach and train you on the operations, but that skill set of how you interact with people would be wonderful for an operations manager. And as the business pivots, our employees pivot, there's a lot of change, and to be agile in those moments to allow that flexibility has been very successful for us to look outside verticals and to expand it further. And I think that goes directly back to the job architecture as you're talking, because you see those competencies in other areas and how it can all connect in the end.
Love that. All right. Jen, this is for you. Can you share any examples? I mean, because we've kind of built this up, and I'm just loving the way this conversation is going. Can you share any examples of innovation when soliciting and applying employee feedback to improve the employee's experience? Any examples?
Yeah, sure. So, I think one of the things we've kind of skirted around when we've talked about tech and innovation is, the use of AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning. And it's usually when companies do that, they're thinking more about their external client relationships and how do we use that to make those better. I'm trying to use that technology to look inward and evaluate the employee sentiments and the feedback that we collect, so that we can not only say, okay, you spoke, but we can say, this is what we're doing with it in response more quickly. And this is where I'm really hoping to kind of gain a little bit more traction. Humans by definition come with bias. Like everything we do, we put our own filter on it, we put our own lens on it. And when we're looking at what employees have to say, we're inherently applying our own biases to the value of that feedback. So, for example, if we think about and we try to figure and attribute, oh, well, Stacy, that's got to be Stacy's comment, or that's got to be Francesca's comment, we can automatically say, oh, it doesn't matter. They're bitter, they're disgruntled, they've got a chip on their shoulder. Let's just take that out of the equation and focus on everything else. Way too easy for humans to do that. So I know in our company, Francesca, you manage, twice year reviews and things like that. We survey our employees all the time. We just wrapped up our annual employee survey, so it's like my Super Bowl season. I'm waiting for that feedback to come back. And we do ad hoc surveys all the time. We have a recurring listening strategy to gather sentiments on varieties of topics in small group formats. And in an organization of 300,000 employees globally, you can imagine how much feedback we have to read through. And that's literally reading through it. So I'm trying to work with our tech teams to apply AI ML models to that so that we can review that verbatim feedback more quickly, more efficiently, and without bias, so that we can really get to what are the trends that we can work with and have to respond to more quickly. It kind of gets to what we've already touched on too about, that technology is the technology. We have to think about how is that going to impact what we do tomorrow. So I'm also really hyper focused on how does using things like this impact the workforce of the future, to say, you know what, and like, you're not going to lose your job, but your job is going to change and you have to be agile and prepared for that. Here's how your transferable skills fit into other job families. We have similar structures. So it's really great to hear that, like, we're aligned with some of the things that we're doing at a global level, because that's really, when you look at what the generations of tomorrow that are coming into the workplace today are going to look for, they're going to expect that, and they're going to want that. So we have to be prepared for that and get people like AIML isn't scary. It's going to help augment and make you better.
I think I so appreciate that, right? That is the next era workforce coming in. And how do you continue to move that forward? How do you sell that? And still going back to understanding that there are people who are going to be apprehensive, and not that we don't want to bring them along, but it's the way that the organization communicates it, right? And I think that when you start looking at that personalization, as I said earlier, how do you communicate that? So one more question, and then we'll go to the Q&A. Rafi, you tell what's next in employee experience? Any techs or trends? I know Jen talked about machine learning, AI, but what's next in the employee experience? Any tech or trends that you see are game changers?
Yeah, there's quite a few that I know Google is definitely working on right now. Obviously, everybody knows about Gemini and things like that. And I'll talk about that here in a little bit too. But a couple of interesting ones that I want to highlight is, people analytics. So like, we're not just collecting data on employees anymore. We're actually using it to like understand what makes people tick. Like, basically people analytics combines power of like big data, machine learning, behavioral sciences. We kind of put it all together to basically, talk about like focus on employee engagement and productivity. Like, how do we get these people to be more productive? How do we encourage people to really engage? So think of it like, the way I think about it is, imagine like a dashboard that tells you like which of your employees are about to have a burnout, which teams are collaborating most effectively, where there may be some learning opportunities and each employee that they want, right? So this kind of thing, I think, is becoming definitely a big thing with AI. The other thing that I've noticed is like just personalized like coaches. So like these chatbots are becoming much more of a thing, and they have the ability to, they use neural networks, so they can kind of learn. They use, I guess, a combination of neural networks and also machine learning. So basically, whatever you tell it, it's going to memorize, right? It's going to remember that it has that kind of capability. And Google has so many different data points about us. So I think that's kind of a big thing, is just kind of like, these AI chatbots kind of going through, like starting with you when you start your job and taking you through the entire journey, like suggesting relevant projects maybe you can apply for or be involved with, helping you prepare for your next performance reviews and things like that. It can even help you like, tailor your benefits package, recommend different types of wellness programs that some employee might be interested in based on what they've shown that they're interested in. So that's one big trend. The other one I've seen is kind of like I don't know what to call it, but think of it like a virtual, like a workplace type of thing where like, there's like different types of like, imagine like virtual offices, remote offices where teams can collaborate together, kind of like Zoom meetings. That's a good example, in real time, and like being able to attend different types of sessions, socialize within those virtual offices, virtual break rooms, and especially like there's so much remote work right now. So just kind of having like a virtual workplace where you can literally walk to different types of virtual rooms. I think that's something really interesting that I think a lot of companies are starting to look into. There's obviously like the listening aspect of it with AI. So, like traditionally, like we've always been sending out like surveys, focus groups, and those kind of things. But like nowadays, it's more like just AI, chatting with you and kind of understanding like, what's your sentiment on different types of things that are going on within the company. Like gathering anonymous feedback from different employees. Just basically kind of like bringing it all together, but just kind of taking a lot more like conversational approach to it. And the other thing I would say is definitely on the, like in terms of like the training. I know I personally use Gemini to learn all different types of skill sets that I think it would be very technical and hard to understand. And also be able to find a mentor that can teach me that right on at my fingertips. But I have that with Gemini. I can literally upload tons of documents into it. It's integrated with my Google Drive and everything, so it can pull documents for me, analyze emails for me, and then give me a comprehensive review of what it is. And also, I've been using the hint prompt assertion method. So it won't take me to the next concept until it knows I know that concept, because I have to give it back a certain part of the response before it'll move me to the next step. So using that kind of hint prompt assertion method, I mean, you can think of like, just imagine what this means for employee training, right? Like right now, if you pair me up with an employee trainer, the trainer might explain a concept and say, "Hey, Rafi, do you understand this?" And I'll just nod and say, "Yes, I get it." And the trainer and the tutor will just move on. But these AI bots, if you give it the prompt that, "Hey, don't move to the next step until the student is able to give that of it back to you," it's going to be a much better tutor because it's not going to move me to the next concept. So I think these are some of the coolest trends that are coming up that I found
Wow.
really.
Rafi, this is next level, you guys. Like, thank you so much. And in the people, business, coaching, strategy space, we're ever changing. I love what Jennifer said about the next era leaders coming in, and Rafi, you're talking about the the chatbot training, and Francesca talking about that framework architecture and care. I mean, this is the next level. I'm so excited. We have some questions. We have Vicky. First of all, panel, thank you. Stay around. We're going to answer some of these questions, and I'll get some last comments from you. Vicky, you want to hit us with the questions from the audience? I think quite a few are coming in, huh?
They sure are, Stacy. Thank you all for this. This has been a fabulous conversation. Reminder, audience members, you can still enter questions, and we are now going to review a few of the questions that we have time for that came in. The first question that came in was, is there a concern that hyper-personalization might create an uneven playing field where some employees benefit more than others, and how do we ensure fairness?
That's a great question. Who would like to take that?
I was gonna.
So
go ahead.
Sorry. Let's go, Carrie.
yeah, I think
Go ahead.
You bet. I think we're all like, this is great because, it also, I think, piggybacks nicely off of some of the things that Rafi was saying. I think there's two sides to that sword. Is, yeah, a lot of data is great, but to some of these questions that we're seeing about how's it going to be used, what about privacy, what about like equal opportunity and everybody having access to that? That's part of what I deal with on the flip side in an operations space. We've got 5 generations in the workplace right now, and I can tell you we get 500 different responses on like how comfortable people are with that data. So the younger generations have grown up in this era of everything they do and say being tracked. We've got older generations are like, what's this smartphone and why does it know that I just looked for something about cats and now everything I get is about cats? And so I think you have to be willing to balance and have multi-channel solutions and lots of different options right now to collect data and manage that data based on those generational preferences, because there are some people who are going to be really freaked out by anything that's hyper personalized, because they're going to be like, where's the camera? Where's the microphone? Like, who heard me? Think that. And there are other generations that have just come to expect it. So I think it's, you have to balance out those expectations. You have to have a variety of different solutions, and keep those kind of all, in your scope. Like, does everybody have access to the same tools, to the same resources? you know do they have the bandwidth? Do they have a smartphone? Like, those are things that we deal with every day when we try to make our apps and the things that we work with more mobile. And let's face it, we have some people that don't have the data plans they need to support things like Zoom. They don't have the access that they need to get to the data, or they're just not comfortable and being like, I'm not going to tell you what my preferences are because I just don't trust it yet.
That's true. Carrie, you want to jump on that? Great. That's a great call in, Jen. Great call in. Carrie?
Yes. So kind of piggybacking on that, technology is working faster than the law. The EEOC just recently came out with some articles in regards to adverse impacts, specifically with the AI tool being used as we, vet out all the applicants that are coming in for our jobs. And then I think what that means is that as an organization, whether you're in HR or whatever you do, you have a higher level of responsibility to assure, like Jen said, we all have biases. How are we assuring that we know where that is happening so we can, turn it around and make sure that it doesn't happen as we continue? We have to continue to audit and look at that data and what's coming in compared to the gamut. And as Jen said, it's a lot of data. So it'll be interesting, but it'll be interesting to see the laws that are coming around this as we do continue to collect more to make better experiences for our employees.
Outstanding. Great. Vicki, any other questions? A lot of great questions.
Yeah,
Other
some very
questions?
good ones. One of them that you kind of addressed a little bit in those last answers. This is about data privacy, right? So data privacy is a big concern. How will employee data be collected and used for hyper-personalization? And will employees have control over the data?
You want to take that, Francesca? Rafi? Anyone?
We can take data privacy offline.
Take data privacy
Well, I think
offline.
Well, it's like one of the points that I made earlier. And again, working outside of HR, I can say that our HR groups are very stringent about protecting that data, not disclosing that data. Like, I pretty much have to write a short thesis on why I want the data, how I'm going to use it, what I'm going to do with it, to even get access to it. So I think, again, piggybacking off what Carrie said, it's a matter of companies keeping up with the laws and understanding how it's going to be used, what they can do, EEOC and all of those things. There's also a judgment recently about affirmative action, and can you do targeted programs and using data. Again, we talked about preferences and people self-IDing and self-disclosing. It's what can you do with that data if you're collecting it, and how do you ensure that you're using it in the right way and not abusing it. So I think these are questions, at least I know from a business perspective, I'm being challenged to ask all the time, and working with my HR partners as well to understand this is why we need it from a practical perspective, again, to get people to trust what we're doing with it. Like, it's one thing to collect it. If you don't ever show what you're doing with it and people don't trust that you're using that data in a way that benefits them, they're going to stop giving it.
So go ahead, Rafi.
Now, I was just going to add, a lot of this actually falls on your cybersecurity professionals as well, because they're the ones that are in charge of your identity and access management, right? So their job is to make sure that the right people have access to the right data and resources at the right time for the right reason. So if you don't have any kind of really good system in place, if you don't have something set up through SailPoint, Okta, some technology like that, I mean, like, if you're just kind of winging it, like on spreadsheets and stuff like that, then there's a good chance that that data is not going to go where you want it to go, and it's going to go somewhere where you don't want it to go. So I think just having a really good, identity access management protocols, making sure that you have role-based access control, those kind of features are in place, and there's consistent reviews, right? Like, just doing those reviews, making sure that people have the right access at a given time. I think one of the speakers earlier mentioned the joiners, movers, and leavers concept, right? So you want to make sure that anytime someone comes in, someone moves, someone leaves, that access is updated, and that they no longer have access to things that they don't need. And I think doing that and just having the good best practices there not only keeps you compliant for different types of compliance related things, but also just keeps, employee data or even customer data protected, I think.
Outstanding. Vicky, a lot of questions.
Yeah, I see two questions related to surveys, so I'm going to kind of put them together a bit. Any advice on personalizing employee or organization-wide surveys to elicit better feedback? What questions have you found that are best questions to really get employees to open up and engage? And the other question about surveys is, while we find that even anonymous surveys don't get much participation, and what are good ways to get employees to provide that feedback?
I'd like to just jump in. It's honestly, it's really hard. It's no black and white when you talk about surveys. It's very hard. There's no perfect one answer to do that. Again, collecting the data and asking people, please complete the survey after they have meetings all day and they go, well, what's this for? How is this going to benefit me? What are you going to do with this information? Like, again, a lot of us in this call have mentioned trust, right? And so I think I would say the what things that we've tried at least are, different types of formats. Do you have a Likert scale? Do you have do you have an open form where they can just type away? People, is it going to be paragraphs worth? Is it worth it to read this thing? If you have 1,000 staff, 10,000 staff, how are you going to actually put that data together, right, in a meaningful fashion where you could pull out information and go, okay, it looks like X% want this or X% want that. I don't think there is a hard and fast answer that there's one answer. You have to try them all and you have to see what data you get. And then you have to work with your analysts and really try to pull meaningful information to see if you can make change. And so, we send all types of surveys out. I know that Jen as well, it's very important to collect that survey. You were just talking about surveys you send out, do things like poll surveys, engagement surveys, benefit surveys. We even do things like post-mortem surveys of, did you like their summer party? Did you like the offerings that we gave? We look at usage, like how many people like the beers to the Coke to the water? We want to make sure that we're investing when you come to the office with your free snacks and stuff. Is this what you actually want? Is anybody consuming this? Are we wasting money on this? These are just examples of like how you would collect this data. But again, this I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. I'd love to open it to the floor and see what worked for you.
Yeah.
I think all of above. Like Francesca, you said the 5 letters I was going to say, TRUST. You have to show people, if you're asking for their feedback and asking for their sentiments, that you heard them and what are you doing about it, or what have you done? You have to be able to close that loop. Otherwise, they're going to be like, I told Francesca 100 times I prefer Diet Coke over Diet Pepsi, and they still give me Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi. So I'm done. I'm not responding to any survey. So, and like that only comes with overtime, and it's a continual process of what surveys work for what audiences and in what circumstances. And yeah, there is no one magic bullet. If anybody has found that, please share.
We all need it. I like the conversation though about really making sure we do something with the data. I mean, it's just it's that simple. If we are collecting it, and I love your example, I don't like Diet Coke, I like Diet Pepsi. Why did you send me a year supply of Diet Coke? Right? And you feel well intended. And then when I respond the way, then I'm a problem employee. No, right? So I love that intentionality, really that intentionality around what we're doing with the data. I think we have time for one more question, Vicky.
Yep, we sure do, but we'll make it fast. We have 3 minutes. So this is good because you've brought up all these wonderful processes for hyper-personalization. And this question is, how can we measure the success of hyper-personalization efforts? Are there any key metrics we should be tracking?
That's a great question.
I mean, if you have follow-up surveys of what do you think of this and that, and I guess any positive feedback, that's one way to do it. A lot of it, I would even think, is organic feedback, direct feedback. My manager always tells me, anytime that someone gives you positive feedback, share that with me. And so I just actually did that 10 minutes ago. I did a screenshot of someone goes, they're watching it now, like, oh, I loved how I'm watching you in Argyle, and I did copy and paste and said, there you go. And so those are the kind of things, hey, I just want to let you know that Francesca really helped me here with, I don't know, this relocation, this moving, this helping me with my team. Those are the kind of direct feedback that I think, you've touched upon 1 or 2, 3 lives, and that was good enough. That was direct from the source. That's one way. That's a very genuine, a very authentic way. Another way, of course, are the surveys. That's at least in my experience.
Mhm. That's good feedback. Anyone
I
else?
think it also goes to how are you filtering your data? So like, we've got all this data. So what are the trends that you're observing by generation, by location, by pay grade level, by, role level? I think, are you interested in retention? Are you interested in development? Are you interested in career progression? So I think part of that is you have to know, again, what is your goal with all of the data that you're collecting to determine whether or not you're successful, or ask your employees like, hey, are we getting it right? Like, or what are we missing? And it's that continual cycle of ask,
Ask and
tell,
answer.
ask again.
You guys, this has been amazing, amazing panel. Francisca, Jen, Carrie, and Rafi, thank you so very much. I'm going to throw us back to Vicki. You all were outstanding.
Thank you so much, Stacey. Thank you, all of you, all the panelists. This has been a wonderful, practical, and insightful discussion. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this session. This session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. And as a reminder, please do check out the prizes and raffle rules section to see how you can earn points for the chance to win a prize. Our next session will begin at 12:25 p.m. Eastern Time, and that will be a thought leadership titled Beyond Borders, Exploring Innovative Strategies for Global Talent Acquisition and Retention. Please click on the Join button that will appear on your screen to be redirected to that session, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you all again.
Thank you.